steering wheel. This is what I inherited, and this is what I've come up with. Not perfect, but good enough for me. Padded with a, I think they call that a baseball stitch. Not difficult, but very time consuming for a novice anyway. So you can see all my trials. You think it'd just be throw a bit of leather on and that's it, but I had a few problems. So I experimented a bit and that's my result. Bit of a sidetrack from the seats. I'm going to look at the steering wheel. And does this look like something off Fireball XL5 or Thunderbirds? So what I've seen of these on pictures is this is normally wrapped in what looks like black washing line, probably a flex of some sort. But this one's been covered in leather, and they've had a go, but it's short on the ends and it's a bit lumpy and whatever. So have a go at doing it, and there's lots of videos on the internet of how to do it. And what you've got to consider is that the inside circumference is shorter than the outside circumference. And what they tend to do on YouTube is cut the leather to the shorter length and then stretch the outer over there. But they're dealing with a continuous circumference. Well, I'm not. It's broken at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. So trying to stretch this isn't going to work. It's just going to shrink back, I'm sure. So I think I'll have to do a bit of trying to nick a bit off each length, add a bit and deduct a bit, and see where we end up. And I'm going to go for green leather. And it's a surprisingly long way around there. It's nearly 8 foot. Well, 22 inches per side. And I found a bit of leather, which I think I can just get it out of. So I'm going to unpick it carefully because I'm going to need every last bit of it. That's a nice soft leather, so that might work. So I'll have a go with that. This is the piece of leather I want to use, and I should get both halves out of that. But I'm going to have a practice with this piece first, and these joints will bugger me up a little bit because there's a bit more bulk there. I'm going to try and make half the wheel out of one of these and just try and get my dimensions. Right, let's see what's going on under here. Well, it's an oval section. It's fat here and thin here, which that leather doesn't show you that really. But I glued it on. And it's how you finish these ends here. Do you try and do a little hem, or just leave it as a raw edge? I really want to do a hem, but that's going to put a little bit of bulk there. Okay, quite a crusty bit of leather there. I think it's double. Yes, it's is that vinyl? Not that it really matters what it is. I think it's leather, although it looks like cardboard. And that's a vinyl. The black's vinyl and the brown is leather, I believe. And that's quite thick. That's probably 2 or 3 mil thick. And I'll get that out of there. Right, this is what I'm going to try. This stuff measures, depending on where you measure it, but it measures 3.5 to 4 millimeters. The green leather is 0.9, pretty uniform 0.9. And just putting that on this skinny wheel, I think it's too thin, be hard to grip that. So I've got some of this stuff. This is that, I think it's a closed cell stuff. There seems to be a glut of it around at the moment. But that measures about 3 mil, 3.5 mil, something like that. So I've tried a little section on here. So it's green leather on top of that stuff. And that actually measures, because I think this squishes up a bit, that measures about the same as the black leather. And if I stop that just short of here, I'll be able to put a little hem on there and hide the bulk. I think that's what I'm going to go for. And I think I'm going to just go for it. Because this black, I'm going to have to glue it all on. I need to figure out the dimensions. Right, I think that's how I'm going to terminate it. So a tiny little hem. And under that is some of this stuff. And I just sanded back the edge. So I haven't got a hard edge. So I just stop that a little bit short. So it tapers in. Now this is this little piece here. Try and do it this way around. That's the right length. But I can quite easily stretch that another 5-8 mil. And I would like it quite tight. I'm just a bit bothered that the glue will eventually give up and it'll start to shrink back. So I'm gonna sort of go in between, I think, and just make it a little bit shorter than that and stretch it around a bit. Right, ready to glue. I've cleaned all that off there. 2 little holes there. Not quite central. Be interesting to see if there's any on the other side. So I've cut this. This is my spongy stuff. And you need a shape sort of like that. I mean, you can calculate this, I've just guessed it. But as you pull it round, that will then become a vertical cut, if you like. And I've left it long, so I'll trim the other end as I get to it. And I want to put a little bit of, as I pull it round, I want to put a little bit of stretch that way. And by doing that, that will actually make the bit that you wrap around shorter, if that makes sense. So I've knocked about 4 or 5 mil off that width to try and pull it round. So hopefully that guesstimate is sort of ballpark. Right, it's been a few minutes. Let's see if that goes on there. And I've still got glue on the middle here, but it does come off with a bit of white spirit. Now, where do we start? I don't know how much of this you can see. Well, that doesn't seem too bad. I'll trim this with a blade now, this end. And you can see I cut that pretty straight, and yet we've got a gap there and an overhang there. Right, ready to glue. So that's the size of this strip. Curved ends with a hem. These tails I've hand tied, and I'll try and just glue those into the middle as I go. Centre line both ways. I've put a centre line on here. Whether that'll still show when I've got glue on it, we'll see. But then I'm going to start from the middle and stretch it out sideways. Nearly forgot, before I do that, I'm just going to stitch this without cotton on a fairly long stitch, just to give me some holes for stitching by hand. And I'm not going to do it baseball style. I just think that's a bit naff really. So just a plain stitch. Well, that's a fail. It's too long that way. I'll just show you inside. It overlaps It overlaps too much. And I think I'm going to put a hem on both of these edges. And I think that'll look nicer than this raw edge. Because even if it's the right length, I think that would look a bit ragged. And so if I leave a small gap in the foam for the hem to sit in, that might work better. Right, a bit more experimenting. I've tried putting a flex around there. I mean, this is a little bit heavy. This is 2.5 cable, and I wound it round, and it looks a bit clunky. But it's still got the same problem that the outside rim is shorter than this rim, and so you would still end up with little pie gaps between the outer ring of flex or wherever it is. So I don't like that idea. I don't like the look of it anyway. So I'm going to try this. Now, the last piece of cloth I used was 90, so this is going to be 80. And I'm going to try and sew some of this in. This is that strimmer cord, which is 1.6 mil. I'm going to try and get that little piping of each one there. So when I wrap it round, I've got something really solid that I can pull that in. It's not going to rip the leather. So my idea to get that in, let's see if this will hold it in position. It's really springy to try and hold it in place. I don't want glue everywhere on this. It does gum the needle up a little bit. I can't see the line very well now. So take that down. Just check those measurements. Right, those are my 80 marks. Blimey, that seems to work, sort of. Bit more glue wouldn't have gone amiss there, just to glue that down firm. See if I can stitch that. What other channel shows you all the failures? Here's another failure. This is with the this piping in, but I've not put any glue on this, and I've done like a baseball stitch, which would sort of work all right. But this, I think this this stuff is so rigid. It is rigid, and you're not going to get any shrink on there. And I'm ending up with too much bulk here, and I don't think that would ever pull up nice. So try it again without the piping, and a stretch. I think a stretch first, and a bit of glue on the ends, and then try and sew it up. But the length is about right. It could go a little bit shorter, but what I've also learned is you have to, when you stitch this line on the machine, you have to stitch this all in one go, get all your dimensions right. So I think we go for it now and stretch it all into position. Right, I lied. One more practice piece. And I just want to make sure I can sew the shape. This will be the shape that I need to make. Okay. Not an easy shape to do, really. Push that one in. Did I just say I've made this one 75 rather than 80? Because the piping will have added some bulk, so I think I need to make it shorter. Oh gosh, this is doing me head in a bit. So this line here, it also has to come in a bit. So it's like that. More glue. I'll come back to you. Right, that's the sort of shape. So an arc that way, these both sides taper in, and the same both ends. See if that will stitch now. And then I'll chop off all this surplus after. Right, well, I had one more practice. This is the one with the piping in it, that strimmer cord. And if I wrap that round, I can get that to actually overlap on the other side, which obviously I don't want. That was 80. This one's 75. And I thought this is more bulky because it's got that piping in it. So I thought 75 would do. And I can barely pull that together. So that would appear to be marginally too short. So I'm going to go back to 80mm. And this is the real leather that I want to use. And I've only got 2 bits of it left. And I need 2 bits. So at some point I've got to just try and make it work. And this is the point. So I've cut that to 100mm across here, so it'll be a 10mm hem, and then we'll see what happens. Okay, so I've done away with that stitch on the end, just glued that. And if I wrap that round without any tension on, it's about 1 inch too short, but if I stretch it, that'll meet the ends. And I'm just going to glue 3 inches at each end all the way around and stretch that round, and hopefully the inner section will then be about right. That's the theory. And I want the middle to be movable so that I can twist it into places and so on. So we'll see how we get on with that.